got a lot of doors. And you know what? He doesn't even care which one you pick as long as you don't pick the one right one. You've heard me say that before. He doesn't care. If some people like this one, good. Some people like that one, that's great. Some people like this one as long as they don't get Christ. As long as they don't open the right door. He doesn't care which wrong door. And different things appeal to different people, apparently. And so Satan serves up all these different recipes. So the first example of false teaching is what I have termed revived Old Testament regulations. Let's look at verse 16 and read it. Paul says to the church, "Let no man therefore judge you in meat or drink or respect of a holy day or of the new moon or of Sabbath." He says, "These things are a shadow of things to come, but the body or the substance is of Christ." And again, part of the false teaching here was the immaterial is what's spiritual, they said, but the physical, the material, is evil, including the body. That's why these people could not accept God in the flesh, because flesh was evil, flesh was bad. And he's saying this stuff is just a shadow, but the body or the real substance, you can take a hold of somebody's arm. He says that's of Christ. So he's comparing a shadow with something that's an illusion with something that's very real and substantive. Okay, but notice he talks about meat, drink, holy days, new moons, Sabbaths. And then when you get down to the end of verse 20, he talks about ordinances or laws, Old Testament laws, and they can be summed up, touch not, taste not, handle not. So the first thing that's going on here in Colossians is it's this old U-turn stuff. Many people were saved, if they had a Jewish background, out of what we call today Judaism, trying to keep the law, trying to keep all the rules. And by doing that, if I try real hard, God's going to be pleased with my efforts, and maybe I'll gain some favor in His sight. So trying to do certain things and not do certain things, and as a result of doing that, trying to gain favor before God, that's called legalism. Keeping all the rules, doing the do's, don't doing the don'ts. God's going to be impressed, and He's going to save me. Or He's going to be impressed with me. And oh, you're a good person. We need more of your kind. Come on in. That's works for salvation. And of course, everybody that gets saved quits working themselves, and they realize I can never work my way in. I'll never be perfect. I need to trust Christ. He's perfect. He's the sinless sacrifice. He died in my place. He paid the price that I can never pay. So I'm turning away from myself and I'm turning to Christ. That's how people get saved. This business right here is doing a U-turn right back into what God saved you from. I'm going to eat certain things, drink certain things, not eat certain things, not drink certain things, do certain things on certain days, keep the lunar calendars, keep all the Sabbaths, etc., and God's going to be impressed. Well, He's not impressed. He's disappointed. And it says here, it's talking about the false teacher. Let no man, that's the false teacher, judge you in meat or drink. And the word judge means to call into question. To question your spirituality or your salvation. See, they say, if you don't keep my rules with regard to food, days, moons, and Sabbath, I don't know if you're really a child of God. And Paul says, don't let them question your salvation just because you're not keeping their rules. Don't pay any attention to that, because we know that's not what it's about. These things are mere shadows. They're all, listen, the Old Testament is just like a great big arrow pointing forward and upward to Jesus Christ. It's a shadow of what's to come. And those things on the top line, they can't save anyone. Nobody ever got saved by eating or drinking or not eating or drinking certain things. Days, moons, and Sabbaths. Those things didn't save people. Now, if you might want to keep your place, we're going to go to Hebrews and we're going to be right back. I just said these things don't save people. Look at Hebrews 10, 1 and 2. For the law, are you there? Hebrews 10:1. For the law, having a shadow of good things to come, and not the very image of the things, can never, with those sacrifices which they offered year by year, continually make the comers thereunto perfect. That's a fancy way of saying all that stuff can't save anybody. It never makes anybody perfect. It never takes anybody sins away. It's just a shadow of what's really to come, and the substance certainly is in Christ. Now go over to chapter 9. There's another word that describes Old Testament things, 9:9, which was a figure. It's a different word than shadow, but it has a similar meaning. It's not the real thing. It just represents the real thing, which was a figure for the time then present, in which were offered gifts and sacrifices that could not make him that did the service perfect, as pertaining to the conscience, which stood only in meats and drinks and divers washings and carnal or fleshly ordinances or laws or rules imposed on them until the time of Reformation. And then who shows up in the next verse? Somebody please tell me who shows up in the next verse. Christ. But Christ, being come a high priest of good things by a greater and more perfect tabernacle, he gets the job done. Verse 12, neither by blood of goats and calves, but by his own blood he entered into the holy place, having obtained eternal redemption for us. See, Paul is alluding to these things, and he said, eat food and drink, special days, the lunar calendar, all these Sabbaths, they're just a shadow pointing forward to Christ. They're not the substance. They don't save anybody. Christ saves. That's what we just saw. And so in verse 20, now we're back in Colossians 3. Wherefore, or why, if ye had been dead with Christ from the rudiments of this world, why, as though living in the world, are ye subject to ordinances or laws or rules? In other words, why would you ever go back to the religion of the rules after God saved you from it? Is anybody listening? Why would you go back to what God saved you from, and that couldn't save you? What he saved you from was unable to save you. So why would you do a U-turn back to that?